Good afternoon and welcome back to our final session of this historic 3-day event. Thanks to the really dedicated participants who are still here, braving 3 days of frigid weather. So, first of all, there's a small schedule change from what's printed in the program. Our session now, which will be discussion, and question and answer, will go from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And then from 3 to 3:30, we will have a tea break. It says to be determined in the schedule. We'll have our tea break from 3 o'clock to 3:30, just an hour from now. And then at 3:30, we'll reconvene for 1 hour for the final session, which will have the theme of serving humanity, and which will involve a large number of the participants from the full 3 days. So the day will be over at 4:30 then. Okay? So thank you for your attention this morning. There were many good questions that were submitted from the audience, and I thought we could start out by reconnecting with the question, kind of with the question that we left off on, having to do with sleep and consciousness during sleep. And in particular, dream states. There were several questions related to what's going on in dreaming beyond, of course, brain activity, rapid eye movement, and these things. Is there a significance to the dream state, which neuroscience can say something about? And in particular, are there things that can be that we can become aware of during dreams, like premonitions or information about things that haven't happened yet? Is this thing possible? And what do our panelists have to say about these phenomena? So, anyone want to tackle that one first? Dr. Ravindra, being the sleep guy.
As far as the dream state is concerned, there are many theories that has been put forth. Why do we dream, and what could be the importance or the functions of dreaming and all those things. But however, these things have not yet been under the framework of neurosciences to evaluate or to authenticate these hypothetical thing that has been put forth. So one thing that has been put forth for the dreaming is that it is way of letting out our subconscious dream or subconscious will or wish. That way it is being let out through the dream. The other thing is also said about the dream is it is a stress buster. That is, whatever is being packed in our subconscious mind that has been let out during the in the dream state. But even though there are some of the subjective reports to say about the precognition and all those things that comes about during dream, but as such we don't have any hard neurophysiological evidence for that. So as such, to very authentically to say about the dream and all those things at this point of time, it's very premature to comment upon that.
Any other comments on that particular question about, especially about the possibility of unusual things happening during dreams which may not be readily explicable in conventional science? Okay. Yeah.
But as such, the one thing we have to say in the dream is that nature has given us one of the very beautiful mechanism that during REM sleep, that our muscle tone is completely lost or it is very less. Where during the waking state, we can see that we have a good muscle tone and we can activate. That's why the REM sleep is also called as paradoxical sleep, because even though our EG, that is wave, is that like that of a waking state, but our muscle is almost like paralyzed, or it loses its tone. That's why the nature has given this mechanism just to say that you just enjoy your dream and you don't enact your dream. So dream enactment is one, again, it's a disorder where we see with REM behavior disorder, where people will just wake up and go and they enact whatever they say in the dream. So this is the one thing. So nature has given just you enjoy your dream, you don't much bother about it.
I like that. Enjoy your dream. I'd like to make one comment because since there were several references to this idea that dreams might be able to say something about the future which hasn't happened yet, which has some truth to it in some way. This is a very interesting question. In psychological studies, they call this precognition. That is, actually having a mental idea about something that becomes true later that wouldn't seem to be possible to explain in any kind of easy way. And it's a very interesting question about if this is happening, how is this happening, and so forth. And conventional Western physical and biological science has no explanation for this if it is happening. And yet in some traditions, I suspect in the Buddhist tradition, there's evidence that these kinds of things occur, that people get information in dreams about things which haven't yet happened. And there have been some attempts very recently to do very careful experimental laboratory studies by Western scientists on this phenomena of precognition in a kind of artificial setup in the laboratory where they present stimuli and they have respondents make responses to it and then that they wouldn't really the respondents are making judgments that they shouldn't be able to make because they don't have the information yet, and they look for statistical correlations and so forth. And there have been some very careful studies of that recently, one of which was recently published in a psychological journal, prominent psychological journal, by a guy named Bem in Cornell University, and several studies by a colleague of mine named Dean Radin in the San Francisco area using EEG. And it's very interesting, the reaction of the scientific community. Now, whether this phenomena is happening or not, I don't know. It's a very interesting thing to investigate. But when this first study was published, the reaction of many people was that this is impossible. This should have never been published. This was a travesty that such a thing should be published. This would violate all the laws of physics and bring down the entire edifice of Western science. It was and this was in the New York Times, the people were saying this, very, very interesting. The other studies, based on very, very good EEG experimentation, as far as I last knew, have not been able to be accepted for publication yet. They were submitted to two important journals in neuroscience, and the journals wouldn't even look at them. They said, no, this can't be true, so we're not going to review this paper. So it's very, very interesting that it's very difficult to even get a good scientific evaluation sometimes of these topics, which are not easily explicable within the framework that we have. And dream research may eventually encounter these kinds of barriers also. Yes?
I have a question to Buddhist scholars. In some of the Hindu schools, they say even they can change the future in the dreams. They can foresee that something is going to happen, and it is possible for them to change that one also. Do you have any such kind of things in Buddhist?
Tiwadi nangbe kyawachuli is cheza nangbe ki ini shung nanglola ani nilam nanglola maung ki ini yuya yimbe kita jungyur ki nizu chik nilam nangla ha ko che cheza di ha ko gyumzin te ne maung ki nizu di ngos mayuya ka che du ani ta kaya kita tablam dinde kare rimru dubya runda kande dinde yore westi samjudi
ane tanda chwa de ajang ya pando ane nambi ki yu nang la ane nyala tindi tang de kola ya mambu yore chedang da nilam tang sa de chedang ni de la ane ni rakpa da ni chamo sene ni che ne ni chamyu ni ka sa ane nyala yungu mares ane ni rapi ni ka so ane nyalam ta de ane yungu yore 예, 네, 건조기 세리반 넘바게 당기나 온라나다 텐트보스로 지어래. 아니 다 닐럼사디 거래에서는 아니 좋고 잠말라 아니 남주게 파시탄으로 집이나 아니 니 라피니케지 아니 예지 트나로 지라 아니 닐럼스게 사지 뭐 드니지 닐럼선 드니지라 시게래 아니 남부 쇼노나 아니 몽바게 아니 가르가르 용구여메 다 뜻은 꼴라야 강자 마체 체바진 딘디기라 양고 냐라 미세기 딘디 가르가르 용구여메 딘디다 양게 수수문이 지나 양 마고 가르용메 딘디 꼴라야 냐라 다 용구와레 답되는 냐라기 이니 두자나고 딘디 용나 디 꼴라야 노테다 냐라 딘디지 담이나 야포레 딘디지 담이나 두자레 두자텔야 노테 딘디 용구레스네 이니 나비 효는라야 네 삽시 지바 딘디 요레스셔이
When we talk about dream in Tibetan Buddhism, we can divide dream into two levels. At the very sleep. Sorry, so we can divide sleep into two levels. We have sleep state that is a subtle level. Sleep state and a gross level. When we are having deep sleep, then we don't have these dreams. Only when we are having a not so deep sleep, then we have these kind of dreams. And we also believe that dreams can predict, or there are signs in dream which predicts the future events, and it can be seen by highly realized or special practitioners, and even common people can have dreams in which they can see signs and signals of the future events that will going to happen. And by looking at such kind of signs and signals in their dream, then they can predict even, and in order to prevent the fruition of that kind of event, we can have rituals and other ways to avoid actually having that state.
ane tanda tiba tola ngai jiktes samjari shenedes chida milam jibade ngazen nangbe jungni shewa yin milam zerende chida zumbe bela sha gore roa milam jabade zumba chi milam da gyuma da tizi tongcher zin chi shegyo roa nangni mitim bichole chi sha gores ane chida ane nga ji kam she yong du gangla ne chi kingor du ju du gangla da sani ane milam ta ba zin chi song yong gore roa teni milam ta ba song yong du gangla china lama de zu ane da chi sani jogi milam ta je che gores ane milam ta je che gu du gangla chi milam zangbo yin ne ta chi gawa gomya da milam chi duja ta wa yin ne cheta ko milam ni milam ra re chi khalor da zumbi che jire ane jira jira ko chanjo che yo mares te songsa ko chi thulwe na wa chen jire ko jira milam yabu shi ta wa yin yabu yin we khawa chang yo mare dubu thana dubu khawa cha yo mare cheta milam la cheta chi doya gi shabden ra woten che yo res cheta zumbi pe jires woten sung yo res.
So, in addition to what my friend had said, when we talk about dream in Buddhism, we consider dream as a kind of not real. It's kind of an illusion or kind of magical, not magical. It's kind of illusion, mistaken view. And so, since it is a kind of a mistaken view or a kind of an illusion, we normally prefer not to pay much attention towards the dreams, whether it is good or bad in the dream. But when we come to the Tantrayana or the Tantra tradition of the Tibetan Buddhism, then there's a mention about dream iltakpa, which means looking at the signs of the dream, or you can look at the dream and predict things that can happen in the future. And there are, like as my friend mentioned, rituals which could help to prevent having that event. But in generally speaking, dreaming is a kind of a mistaken state of mind, and we do not give much credibility for dream and dreaming states.
Nyelam zedi nalo tarangan zu menshu nalo la di nyelam gechim shirasig kaisana neba chomazo menju jen chomazo sedi taya jing namju thone neju mangu shin yu denga sor lagwado nyelam thone mangu shin re tindu pena amjijik neba zada daga chimbina en laga tu strain du gane trozelam tu chezi chawa ta muse mawo tu da thonga ta jilatu samru lamje shin sero laga tu studio gane neba daga tu laga tu studio enji twa chikaso re chala tubu tinde magic debe soro cha debe soro en yeyin twa ngui nebe ta shi so che sero tu me je go diksi tam shi be sik chik laga tu gi tu tinde ko ngui be soro ya o tinde jundu gane chikaso re am지 랑가 두고 간다 딘데 용도 간에 텐데 거기 내가 패지 가고 차대 그래 다 딘데 병아 지 겔 삼르스탄 가서 딘데 냠요 제비네 니마 중으로다 병아 아삼 드디 거기 다 드디 이타 나갔을 때 이거 아삼 거기 나가서 내가 시다가 심비 파치 아니 파트도 가게임도 랑가 야타주도 삼바치다 야타주도 내가 그 자에 디단다 괜찮 내는데 에 거기 니만 있어 수용민데 된다 제메와 가상 파도서 장갑 사bat 배 개와 차시지. 엔 뭐라 배 거지도. 엔 디나로 조질람도 체지 차와세로. 다야고 중뭐 수삼사지. semna namdo ke dija sun tagdar sha ngima ni srechi tola. Never be to kasota tongre. Ya de nga shilu de never zada stu sle son leje nga zu dibur de never taga tu gane chuzu sumbe ningu chatang je. 엔 chatang de chat usene lawa du shabda. 된다 기계면지 가서 다 도와게로 가게 맞지 고마 자제 다 가이 차서 삼년 나와 다 체식 착과서 어디 중상 중선 딱딱한 디 베지팅이나 소리 지금도 다 망고지게 돼야 슈퍼스티션을 쓰기로 다디 멤버들 닐람 내가들 삼다인도 가니 닐람들 싫어요 지금 봉부다 나무다 딘데라니 집으로 쉬는 호조 좀 미치세요 봉부다 아니 나무다 많이 딘데라니 지금 둘러매어제 집으로 쉬는 호조 좀 미치세요 어디데 닐람 지가서 냠바들 망고요 디즈간 디즈 지가서 지다가 좀 닐람다 세로 디게 다 남다데 슈퍼스티션 레스체니 망체 디치고라 다니 멘슈 나로라 디 휴지 개신 부 인송와 간서 내 닐람 기차디 변차 샤브는 빼디셔노와 매직 타르 무진의 매직 당제 드네 도 중국 여비나 다 매원에 그랑 가서 통하면데 돌 땡도 간에 도디 제라 매용구 여비 세부 차사브레스 다가는 신 지금 생도로 찍네 매도로 때는 컴퓨터 생도 소리네 매도 야고 차용도나 아니 매도 될 때네 대부 연구위에서 어디 설제디 단다 지금 아대 수간에 미배는 지금 야고 연구위원회 연구위원회 인물을 양아대로 지금 용대에서 양팀은 지금 치킨 서로인데 연구위원회 그 용행문 들어야 지금 딘데 따로 위원회 배세브 쉬우시레스 디자 녀람래 단의 쉬우는 시딘데요 녀람 녀버 대변은 지금 봉부다 나무다 딘데라 지우르시는 호조 주미지에서 디 멤버 지금 가서 달러 체만 진신 인거게 제가 신 달러 배 체만의 제와니 배 닝리아 게딩에 서로 아니 닝네 가서 직주 딱지 나대 먹고 싶다 뒤직제 근데 남주 토래야 요래 남주 가산 도와지 감이 좀 시간 하면데 미베 만나 책을지 나주 교육 넘버 신규나 미디 치다원도 성인 제를 니마 미 상부 시우지 인기인이라다 나서를 봐줘 루보도 미디 시가 줄침비나 是吧 변의 상부내 년바 루보도 줄침비나 디치대래 제를 야 년바 시우지 미 두자 시우지 메스고나 베 년바 제대가 저 루보를 교견스케 매우지 야고 상부 차비는 치대래 디자 두주당디 가서 미남주 토네 변의 마미지게는 바시가 라고도 왜 셰바고 나시 엔디데기 교마고 되그레스 멜람 사브디노 가나 가서 멜람 타고 쓰는데 질 가서데 천도 멜람 징에 대부미 토론토도 세는 대부 징수하래 생규 도자다 도알 변의 지 멜람 땅바이나다 니 베림 부시우스쿠인도 간에 디나데 제루레스 토론토도 세는 대부 징자다 토랑 두주데 니 지세 토랑 두주데 녜제 아니 디급대 녀람 시당기 돈은 땡땡 되고 여자 여거 좀 생각하니까 토랑 두주데 나도 로자 웃음 이제 로마 지가서 특지 러시아 장마 배송을 이제 아니 오면 유튜브 간에 오면 나로 답이나 농 유튜브 간에 토랑 두주데 아니 오면디 오면 농들라 지금 나다 시부치부 때에 아니 가서데 지금 가서다 세부정에 나와서 딘데기 교육 때문에 나로 정루 편에 딘데기 교육 맞아 봐. 야지기 시부 때인도 간에 지로기 니면로서 딘데기 아니 깽기 특히 편이 디기 야지 오만 수년 수마인 봐. 엔 토랑 그 때인도 간에 예윤이기 니면다 나와 우양이데 배톱 니면 가서 니면 배 찬님마 때인도 간에 엔 디가데 다 가서 우메 나로기 지 가서 저나 나마시와 디단 녀람니 저 차인도 간에 디갑데 녀람데 세부 시부다 아니 티그레스데 어디데 메시나 수가 디인도 간에 가서 천도 멜람 징에 대부면서 다 천나도 되게 되지 쉬우는 시 멜람 제도 그래서래 안 디인도 간에 토랑통도 세나 대부진 스티 텐데 세워요 디 멜람 나로네 니주 원에 티군데 방시다요 벤당 안주 지 암지절로 치대 맛이 소아 랑도가 소리 다 디멜람로 소가 디게디 야고지 마시미나 암 네버 더그레 더마르세디기 가만 다투 마레스 엔 가만 다 모도나 네버 디죠 투근 셰투 마레스 벤데 네버지 베시에 제제 타 최위네 치대를 마데 제제 도도 메디기 데비나 롤 멘제잖아 멤버 첼 세지네 요 디자 디주당디 메슈나 세비 요레 센 투쉐이 so the dream is very important for a Tibetan doctor, even for Ayurvedic doctors, very important. Because dream indicates a lot of things and also predicts a lot of things. And also we'll take dream as a part of omen, which gives informations. So especially the Tibetan doctor, when they go to see a patient, they see a lot of omens while they walk, When you see somebody crying or if you see things burned or like broken things, it means this definitely has an indication about the life of the patient. And it happens so many times. Yeah. And also the certain changes of the behavior, temperament of a person. A person who is very nice, very gentle, but suddenly he has a disease and suddenly he changes his kind of like behavior, and that is also not very good indication. For a Tibetan doctor will say, oh, this is not very good, And in the same way, like in the dream, sometimes, the patient is riding buffalo, donkey, these things with a naked body, and then he's traveling towards the south, where the direction of the Lord of Death. So these sort of, informations gives you kind of like state of the life of patient, and it really comes true in many times. And there are also good, dreams, your parents likes you very much, and you are praised by your parents and your colleagues, and you are worshipped, and then you receive something like white scarf or maybe white things or good kind of like gifts, which are precious. Purity in nature. So this definitely indicates that you will be getting definitely some kind of a good luck. Yeah. So in my practical understanding, my experience, dreams gives a lot of information and which are in many cases true. And dreams are not superstitious. Thank you.
But for this, a proper recollection of the dream is very important.
Yeah, this is what.
So
Oh, sorry.
you-
So the best time for such dream is in the pre-dawn, the early morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that time the central channel will be balanced and not affected by the right, what do you call it, Pinguli, or what do you call that other?
Ida. Okay.
Right.
Another question had to do with how close do you think neuroscience is to being able to directly stimulate in some way the brain to produce dream states and perhaps even modulate or affect those dream states in some way?
But as such, no. As such, we do not know any specific area to say that this is the area where dream is generated. We know in terms of networking, but not in terms of a specific area. So in that case, it will be very difficult to bring about a simulated thing of a vividness of the dream. I don't know, but because we don't know any specific area which will really bring about these dreams. So even for a general dream, it is a total integrated networking of the whole brain, probably, that brings about this dream state.
Yes, please.
How you mean the network? Say like dreaming a flower, definitely the visual neurons must be functioning. Dreaming, hearing beautiful sound, they must be a different network. And dreaming some other things, maybe a different network would be there. So how you mean that we know the network? Is there a common network for the dream?
No, as such, there is nothing called as a common network for the dream. Network in the sense that what was the subjective feeling a person feels when he's in a dream state. So as I told you that, has said that the dreams that were in the early morning that comes, it is too emotive in nature. We have more of emotional component, because when we have even in a normal sleep pattern, the REM sleep increases in the second half of the sleep, that is in the early morning phases. So during those phases of sleep, the fMRI studies have shown that the activation of amygdala is very high. So, and when the person has been woken up and to say about his subjective feeling, so he narrates this dream story and his feelings of too much of emotive in nature or emotion like that. So in that way, we can just say that, okay, these are the areas which could be probably bringing about these feelings. But when you ask about the vividness, the colors and all those things, I don't know. We don't have answer.
Yeah, in terms of actually stimulating the brain to dream, we don't seem to be close to doing that electrically or something like that in any way. Chemically, there's a particular neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, which is very much involved in that activation of the brain during REM sleep. And there are substances which will activate the acetylcholine receptors, most famously nicotine from the tobacco plant. And so there are some shamans, especially in South America where tobacco comes from, that use tobacco to invoke powerful dream states. So that's one way of doing that. That doesn't necessarily allow for manipulation. It's probably a better study of how to generate and manipulate dreams probably comes through the tantric dream yoga practices, where folks really do cultivate the ability to readily control something about the nature of the dream. And many mystics have said, I've seen written, many experienced yogis have said that at some level of practice, there's no distinction between the wake sleep state and the sleep state and the dream state, and that's a very interesting statement. And what does that mean? Is a very interesting thing to ponder. Dr. Roy.
I have some questions against to Buddhist scholars. Up till certain years, maybe up to 4 or 5 years ago, people believed that, the general survey, that the blind people who are blind since birth, they did not have visual dreams. But one survey is going on in the United States. The result is not yet published. There, blind people claim that they have visual dreams, very vivid visual dreams, where they describe exactly where they are staying, how their houses are, the geometrical figures of the rooms and doors, etc., etc. So now you tell me from Buddhist perspective that how these images are being carried out by our brain or by blind people.
Nangbe kyonso le tewa chius cheza nyama longes ngimbe mena an ngaju kita khadu yores labi mena ani chikmiji thangbung en ko shara imbe mena kol mig mewe mena koran ke nyilam ke nangla ya an su da khado de ani thong thug mares ta thong thug mewe ki in yichi chi yores himbe na ani tade ke chala ari ke nang ta nyamship shdo de gure nyamship de gune ani ata nya shisha chiwi mena ani mig mewe imbe ne re imbe koran ke nyilam ke nanglo la ani su khangba gi yib da tigana shi ta chik nyilam ke nanglo la su da ib khado de mangush la rirawa de mangush thong thug yo di ani nye yores cheza di ndu zambala ne don dila ani nangbe ke ani tarup ngone ani deshi khanes yegres
ane tanda nyilang ko de ta cheda mambo chi som te tanda cheda nyilang tang di ko de chivina nga nang lo chivina ta tungko nang la ani thile ri he sa chi son yare ani thile ri he sa de ani sebi thile da ni tu gi thile da malam ji thile sa da anyung ju gi thile sa thile ri he son yare te na ne ani malam gi thile sa de ani tawa dan remba dan hinga tawa sun chene ani pen thile ti ane remba le yung be kaso ani nyalam chi thile sa chi ti kaso ta so nyalam tawa di tindi go ne chi sun yare ani tanda de jidang khong gi tawa de ma che unde ne ya khola mi me ne tindi ga zun thong nyalam tang de zun thong de yip tindi yung re sa de ngi sambala ti phajin tindi yung chog re sang do jidang khola ya 쳇디라 단다데 무스 딘디기 미기 카투르 판통 메위나 ya cha ngami ke 딘디기 ya momoch mambochi tunsaisa 딘디기 왕게 통아치 용레 상사치 야레 나데 마임 바 양코 로지노 지셰위나 야 ngansu shote ngama ene ya anela chi yares mi chen tombo che undeni chen montongi chi dela yu koropa rodu kaps chivina miso chi tin gomison 딘디지 용이야데 이나 양코 nenga 딘디 kala tu samala korang ki ya ndo thagi 딘디게 따쳐와 딘디 용이 딘디 로주야 ngi 딘디 곤유요 딘디 samade ngi samala pheji 딘디긴 통 chogu yares sambaje tikhaye
So when we talk about the dreams in the Kala Chakra text, there's a mention of 4 essential drops or the tigli or the drops, and one of these drops is responsible for dreams, and these drops can move from our different parts of bodies, and when one of these 4 essential drops reaches our throat area, then it becomes the drops that is responsible for dream, and when it reaches here, then we can have these dreams. And as when you ask those blind people, even though they are blind, if they can see visual objects in their dreams. From Buddhist point of view, it is acceptable, it is possible, because even though this particular individual is blind in this life, but since his mental continuum is come from a previous life, so he can have this visual signs or sights in his dream. And I also have example, like a story related with this. And there was a nun who is blind, and normally she needs somebody to take her around and do her daily jobs. But sometimes it happens that without having any help, it seems that she can do everything by herself. And so there are kind of this kind of stories, and maybe so that's the answer. Yeah.
I think that's not only for the blind people, even though someone who could see, but there are some dreams that you see in the dream something that you never been seen before. And practically, we have an Iranian boy in Bangalore. He's studying in Bangalore. When he was in his country, he said he used to have dreamed with the monk's robe, like red, wearing he never seen in his lifetime. But then, after he finished his school, he applied for the college, higher studies I think he applied in France. But unfortunately, somewhere he was delayed to there, so then he had to come to the Bangalore. So one day when he was walking in the Brigade Road, so he have seen someone which he have seen in his dream very long time back. So I think that is a good sign for the people who believe life after death. And this could be, I think that even in ordinary people, I think dream has a lot of things to do with the imprint, or in scientific term, you can say adaptation. You might have been adapted very long time in earlier, and then later you get it in the dream. So maybe in Buddhism you may say imprint of earlier karmic imprint, or maybe you can say adaptation for a very long time. I think this could be possible.
Okay, so this is not adaptation in the present life. This adaptation, you mean from past life?
I think it's not necessarily to be in present lifetime.
So, do you mean there is a substratum containing all these kind of dispositions?
Pardon?
Substratum?
I don't.
No. There is a storehouse which contains all kinds of dispositions from your previous karma and life.
Well, now since we have taken, as a Buddhism or as a one who believes in life after death, we have taken infinite rebirth in the earlier.
No, I'm meaning kind of concept, alloy Vignana.
Pardon?
Alloy Vignana.
Alloy?
Vignana.
Okay. Well, in Chitta Mantra you can say that. But other schools, they don't believe this.
This may not. This is probably related. There were other questions coming related to your talk, Geshe-Nyima, about the mental consciousness, the sixth consciousness, and what you had to go through that last part of your talk rather quickly, but you put up a number of slides that were referring to the mental consciousness as possibly a conduit or a place where other kinds of information could come into the mind. And could you say more about that? What does this mean? This sixth sense that you alluded to.
I went through the internet when I need to talk about the sixth sense. So I've been looking what scientists are saying on the sixth sense. So I found some of the slides that I showed you the last moment. And I don't know whether this has been accepted by all the scientists, but in this, they describe some beautiful things. They said sixth sense is something that you see which is unseen by the five senses. Like there's something that you cannot see from eye, you cannot hear or touch beyond the object of these five senses. The six senses detect that object.
So what does Buddhist philosophy have anything to say about mental consciousness being a place where other kinds of information can come in, like, for example, through dreams?
In the Buddhist text, the mental concept, mental perception can perceive everything, not only it doesn't need to be detect only the things that five senses cannot detect.
Okay.
It can be detect flower and everything. Mental has a capacity to know everything.
Okay. So does that mean that if, for example, dreams can be somehow getting information that goes beyond what normal senses might be getting, that the mental consciousness might be involved there in some way?
Well, in Buddhism, sleep is one kind of mental factor, which is not considered as a virtues or non-virtues. It's in the how do you go mangyeva. It can be converted into. That's why they said when you before you get sleep, if your mental state is kind of positive virtues, so this is even your dream, whole night dream is going to be virtues. And if you sleep with a very angry or hatred, then whole your night is going to be like sleep is also going to be a negative sleep or non-virtuous. So sleep is actually one kind of mental factor.
Okay, thank you. Now, do any of the monastics here on the panel have additional questions that you would like to put to the panel?
I think this question is for Cicero and Professor Ravindra, and so I think this is a similar question that we had asked yesterday. So can we have neurotransmitters or chemical substance which is specifically responsible for having different mental states like happiness and sadness?
Yeah. So there are various neurotransmitters and chemicals that are being correlated with the various mental states, with happiness and sadness and all. For example, it could be dopamine, melatonin, or 5-hydroxytryptamine. So many such things are there. And we have one latest called anandamide, which has been shown as a neurotransmitter of extreme happiness or ecstasy like. I have a question there. What does the Buddhist text they say about non-dream sleep state? Does it have any specific role or something?
진짜 낭베기 슝 나로라 탄다 니람 메베기 니기 네갑지로 딕 콜 아니 카르가르 숭 요레스
ane 다 nyala mepi ki ani ni ji nekap sana ta tambo nga thoma ni ku di tamala manju wangxi rakwa tsu samadi nangla mama du ne tamatila ani wangxi samadi mya chane yeji shiba nyachi chawana ji sungyare an yeji shiba jibo ani yeji shiba de 대야 아니 타라 몸부시체네 예지 시바티나네 아니 바 타르타르로네 아니 타만텔라다 nga hyuni shibina ani ni je sa singendo tini thola chillegere ta di kapsula ani ba yishi thomun rochi ta yena ya chashi tindi ta gom nyani shiwi jyenge yina sebine keso ta sangon ji thungin roji yina ta ni je ne keso ni je sa di kapsula ta ko tomani la so tindi ke gom thungi ke tindi je yongyare 다 딘디 마이게게 간수 남주티이나 다 니제 사사데 니 참모티 지 응원도 주고야래 이나 양간수게 뭐 토티고 말에 송야래 딘디 담아다 뭐바 니쿠단데 시휴노테 nga hyuni phashibina da ni pha thar dan yang tel nan chi thosu chachang di chana uchi ji zamala ngsu karasa gore toba rabat sonde phangane ani di jila ani nawi shi chibi shi ni tu shi tamji tomba sa sa di dindi ge chana uchi yungre sene dindi ge ya yungno shi ya sa chi.
So I don't know at what extent I can translate his answer, but I will try. So in Buddhist texts, it is mentioned that when we go into sleep, all our five sensory perceptions cease to exist, and only when we enter into the sleep state, only our mental consciousness is present, and there's no sensory consciousness like eye consciousness and dream consciousness, air consciousness. And for common people, we don't. Then when we talk about the dream state itself, there are different layers of dream. I'm sorry. When we talk about the sleep state, there are different layers of sleep state, and when we go into the very deepest level of this sleep states, then if you are a very highly practitioner, highly realized practitioner, then you can actually direct that sleep state to examine the nature of like emptiness and nature of phenomena, the real nature of phenomena. But if you are not a real practitioner, or for the common people, we don't realize or we don't directly perceive the existence of this existence of our consciousness at the sleep state. So it becomes kind of a dormant states. We don't know, or we don't recognize, or we are not aware of our own consciousness at that time.
ane tanda genju su bana jire ane nga zu jida nang chuni she jena ni ni kun la minga je kan la yoba ten no si chi she jure jida ni de la ane ko kari milam ta wa yin da milam ma ta wa yin da ni ku du kan la jida nyal du kan la ane nya yen na jor ten ne kan ji kan da semba zambu jita ne ane nye de wa yin na sanji joge ane milam ta na da ma ta na da kan ji kan da sanji joge par do ni se par do kan ji kan da ni de ge wi ni la du gre si ti she jure ro otni do do
Just in addition to my friend, in Buddhism it is also said that like when you go into sleep and throughout the night, whether you are having dream or not, before you go into the sleep, whatever the mental position you are in, but if you are in a positive mental position, or if you are in negative mental position, it carries forward. You know, if you are at a positive mental state when you go into the sleep, then until you become awake in the next morning, your mental continuum remains in positive state.
A small question again to Buddhist scholars. Couple of years before, one scientist named Tononi from United States, he discovered that Drosophila, fruit flies, they have a dreamlike state. So what Buddhist school thinks about that?
What's that?
Drosophila has dreamlike state.
An insect.
Cheza din tiwa di nangbe kyang zo lins. Cheza ari ki tanda ta tsering bachi yoris koran ming jiglas ta di tembajesha. Cheza ani koran ki share chibi mena koran ki niya chibi mena tanda anganzo simbu doa simbu dinzo la Drosophila la dila ani ko nilam ki nekap nikubik nekap ta mazi ta nilam tawi ki nekap yoris yosares laisha yoris cheza di tol kyan zuk samdu karius.
First of all, I would like to ask him, how did he know that?
And you have to read his whole paper, published in Neuroscience Journal.
Well, if the Drosophila has a brain,
Yes, it has a brain.
so they can.
Yeah, it has well-established fact. It has a brain.
So then even we can, I think we can understand even the dogs get the dream. Because while they are sleeping, sometimes without touching, without doing anything, they get the frightened. So I think there's nothing to be surprised.
So even a
If the being has a brain, or if the being has a consciousness, or they could get a dream.
Yeah, I mean, whether you have that kind of evidences in.
I really didn't see us specifically in text, but
The neuroscience is that the Drosophila brain has a electrical state which is similar to REM sleep. So since that's correlated with dreams in us, then maybe Drosophila is dreaming. Of course, we don't know what the mental experience of Drosophila is.
so at the same time, I would like to ask Dr. Yamasajula about the dreams, the sign of the dream, because in the Western parapsychologists, depth psychologists, they also use this dream and sign of external phenomena and things. So in Buddhism and in Tibetan, I think the sign has a lot of things to do with the traditional too, because when we dream like a snake, a Buddhism or Hinduism or whatever, they may say it's a naga. It could be an influence of the naga, or it could be a naga's blessing or anything. But in depth psychology, when a person came to a depth psychologist as a patient to see the depth psychologist and ask about his dream, because usually the person is always too much afraid of the snake. And that time he dreamed a golden snake, and he wasn't afraid with that snake. And at the same time, he was in very difficult situation. So since he couldn't go any medical doctor to ask about his problem, then he went to see a depth psychologist and ask about his dream. So the depth psychologist has been trying to find out what does it mean. He's been to Nepal trying to find all the information. But then he described like snake is something like it gives you a concept of rising from the lower path to the up and wake up. Anyway, he explained to the person, this is very good for you, encouraging you, anyway, the psychologist explanation helped to the person, because without getting a good job, without getting a better position, but still he relieved from his the suffering. But anyway, so is there any things to do with the culture, how you define the sign and dream? No, Milam the Tagzinjira.
당고디 Yelam that can so much in Yelam delay Rigu Hashe. Hashe answer that. Turn never chitaya. Come issue with Davina. Cash that it tara taking a mission day in a chick mention sometimes you can Yelam in neg of Hashe. Chick Sugu Lungi begging 2 king to Deva. Milam Sugu Nilam Hashe Yantic turn never day kingy Yan Yon Deva. What did this rare? Did you can a Pensa Shavina? Want to Milam do any Gosal should sort of do the new thing that. And down the children never seem you do to the Tala Pejon. What a deal the Yalam time do gane any captain the blue sympathy says. Tak Penayalam did this time we and then the Pivab Chimina, then the captain Nasa the Luris Sene, the shading of it. Shavananshi, that the Tungu area says, got it down beginner. Java. Today, that penalty to the Tala, the Beva, the Jomo today, Lose Simjan today, Yalam Tangananshi, today any never the Sugunia Tungu was then the Tungu. Tungu Karis Gane, Ranzu Tanda, Surasis, Nazat, Pagne, Pagwena, Surasis is your Tamudua, Tobachin, and the church, and it Sabra Kudugana, Papa Mangu, huge part, and Bango to my own degree. A Bango to my own to Ganani, but Pagwena to Petchu Shuchang boy. Tapagwena to the Sotal Davina, but mention some Dana. Tangan Yaku Davina, 2 yore, Jomo yore, Tala yore, and Dana Shiji sweep deep and a Hawadu than Pagwena sting on the yore. That the need was a low. Do not the Shimju researching a professor's page. And as the Louis or your Senama country and yes, Rice said the Louis as a captain or race. You have an she Lucy choose to do rest, and dig is Sugul never starved the Rice the scene and to get Chazan your shoe, and a cross bet handles. And did it just sweep in any consistent, but Casey the Louis Mabina and Surices like these Sugu removed the in Beva to Jomo that the day on the contested the king has to shake at yours. Ganzuina, the look at each other, the sweep the to do or said it. Tip and never got Tungu for you. Or did the chick Hawadu than the Lundus to an Lud the Lud that says over. Zesse Nazadi, Captain Lule, is a Lud doing another race. Even she any Nazadi, Tishaka was now Pagwe Naza. The Paneo, Manchester, the Pane, Ricky Gone job here, any Neve Gone job here, Serota, Negi Gone job here, Sugana, the Pagwe Naza Inucho, want to say Resana, Peggy Reslam to go. That very well of today in any best to which the chick the day can decay Maris. Zekuna let Zekabo the Nakusi or Nichi, that Nakuti winner to which dancing serve or decay on the Gores. Zekabo Divina, what the Pagwe Nas Japan, Lugutama say, Pacta die. Pena chilo la pata nando zesse gori ini zeti zeshin da dress maris goro ini captain de lu yores che de ga zu danda chi rishuna yo ta yeba nangshi kade yor silgane psoriasis never mangol ye kestinyu kesti je ni ngelam de kane de chi tu skane katu ine ngelam de thu tang tu sero chumi tang tu sero ta dil ninges da psoriasis be shi yore tindel kanti nanda ta na yore Yanani, she could do also two Takwan Yalam Tango set of Tindy Chumbre, Peningama, Dilil Mage, Pomoloshi or Surasis Naje, she was out of Odisha. And the name that care of me, Tamupe, Kran, Chicasora, you have one like Kran Sena, Topper, Kran, Chican of the Teves, say Chicta, Yalam got to Tangusane, Chumilchi, and Chumi Dodge, Soma Shawsons, that till the Jagare, Dishes one. And you were the Yalam Garmounters and Takwa is two cobra time those. And Anzu did on the Lamdur of Jeje. And Major Majan when the Kran Spaghetti, ships it as spaghetti, and comes to knock the style on Duzul Medo, that's that Chevakar chicken, and she met to the met and a pinky says, or to shake you. Tinda to Zutandi, Anzu Ludota and Chevi Nata, Amji Veshane, Shubina, Captain, the Chevi Shula, man down in a mail and term 100 ton, then the Chig Trevech at the Pendos, Shiradu says, the young Newton shooting or direction. These are the Nasa Tamje, Raya, see Gasol Tubit, because of Nalog, that Chilu Nene Karine, did you go my image? Ya, 땡땡 내 탐제라 갑다를 여버디 세브레스 디자 갑다가 안주 룩스를 제제고 매우 세브나 야고 지랑 안주 난도 되는 봤을 때 되세디 군다 되네스 메슈 나로 되세디 에니 되만에 여버지 말레스 수서 삼삼네 다 다셔베지 레스 이네다 되만에 메스를 간에 낭주도 치고 차고도 근데지만 야디 되레스 제 두두서럽지 하람 딱 벌지 수행데 개요 말레스 이네 딱 되가나주디 지금 남도네 마드윈즈 간에 지딱 뭐게네 간 두슬럽 윤두 간에 따다가 켈린지 다운은 가르쳐 그랬어 간에 아니 되디 시월제 지도 초가 디저 우리 디네데 제고로 슬럽 윤두 간에 딱 편도 니도 나나도 남바임비는 바 지금 소설 가서 지구 유대에 디디지 막간 남는 신 이시 없는 간 남는 신 제행도 제버디기 이시 톤의 제행도 간에 초가디 독스 두바다 다 줍송 삼삼 지금 네백 셈 나와 다디 줍송 삼삼 이지 대바지도 간에 네백 셈 나와 초가디 차와다 다디 줍송 가서 챙겨 나면나 매기 배지 아무지 많지고다 가서 그냥 하나 티베 아무지 많이 다디 배지 갖고 있어요 두즈레로 어디 텐데 개와 여버지 제샤디 네백 셈로 레핑도 심슈 레핑도 아니 되는데 다 예사를 슬럽도 간에 지 예배 나와데게 다 매수그래 세저로 어디 텐데 셈라니 팬도고 쉬우지레샤 디장 안주다 메슈나로 지기 게로 시작으로 뒤되세 졸람셔라 뒤멜라로고 세럼데다 엔 되는거네와 여르세 세멜라로고 졸람멜라로고 세 디나로네 되세리 디사 망체지야 수에 또 태송의 시간 다 딜람나야 지 이지 제 아요면서 이내 운에 돌지도 간에 디된다 핀도시 무리샤 성도 so it's not only physical disorder but still we believe there are evil spirits or you can say spirits that affecting the body. For example, the leprosy or psoriasis is a very good example. You know, in case of psoriasis, normally we say the doctors they say the psoriasis is a psoriasis, it will remain psoriasis. Means there's no treatment for that. But according to Tibetan medicine, psoriasis has the background of Naka, the serpent or the water realm. Lu is there, and then you can also see the water animals as a kind of like design when you have the skin problems related with psoriasis. So in such cases, in my own experience, it's very important to have some kind of like rituals or puja done to the Naka, and then if you start medicine, it's very effective. And most of these people who have skin problems, particularly psoriasis, they always have a dream of water, ocean, and then water-related animals, including cobras and all those different types of snakes. And it is what I have understood from many patients. And even if we ask in future, definitely they will tell you the same thing. So this is very important, not only medicine, but still we need rituals, as a support for the medication.
Well, thank you for that. I think it's pretty clear that the entire conference could be devoted to sleeping, dreaming, and consciousness. This is a huge subject. Just in close session, I'd like to ask you, those of you that are attending the conference, since this is the first event of this kind, and we hope there will be future ones, if you have any comments that you would like to share with us about your experience here, we would very much appreciate that. If you could write that on a piece of paper and get it to one of us, to Bryce especially. They will all eventually go to Bryce, so you could just hand it to him directly, or anybody else that gets it, hand it to Bryce. And then remind you that our last session, which will start after tea at 3:30, is going to have the topic of serving humanity, and we'll have contributions from many of us who were part of the various panels and speakers. And sessions that came from you all earlier speak directly to that. What are we doing in the future? How are we exploring Buddhism in the material world, and what is the purpose of our exploring? If the reality as I know it doesn't exist in the way that I think it does, where should I put my efforts in life? So these are questions which we will hopefully address in our closing panel. So thank you.